Okay. Hello, everybody. We are back once again with another Pencil Weekly live stream. This week, I am delighted to be joined by my colleague Theo, who is a creative director here at Pencil, who has been working on some very awesome creative for us that we're going to be talking about, which is all about VO3, how to get the most out of this amazing model from Google, how we've got the most out of this amazing model from Google, and how the 50% price drop, yes, you heard that right, 50% price drop inside Pencil on VO3, the best model out there, can really help you scale up your creative and iterate faster. So with all of that lengthy intro out of the way, Theo, hello, how are you doing? Good to see you.
I'm all right, mate. It's okay. Down here in New Zealand, so it's the evening down here, but it's
Yes.
okay.
So yeah, exactly opposite times, I think, in New Zealand. So we're feeling very grateful that you've stayed up to join us on the stream. So look, you've been working on this creative for Pencil to talk about that VO3 price drop, as I've just mentioned. Shall we share screen and watch the piece that you've put together, and then maybe you can talk us through.
Yeah, go on. If you've got it there.
I think I have. Yeah. So this is going to be the first time I've done a share screen video that isn't that little countdown clock. So let's hope that it works. Okay. So Theo, you can see that, can't you?
I can see it. Hopefully
everybody watching, I hope you can see it as well. Let's go.
Satchel charges.
Don't worry, we can roll all day. VO3 just got 50% cheaper on Pencil, twice the output, same credits.
Action! The satchel charges are on the chopper.
Ridiculous.
Wonderful. Good stuff. So. Very good. The thing I really enjoy about it is that satchel charges really is genuinely quite a difficult thing to say. So you can kind of you can understand the little AI man getting confused about it. But look, why don't we kick off by why don't you just talk us through your kind of creative process with this one, and then we can kind of come on to talk a little bit about VO3.
Yeah, sure. I guess the first thing was we did take a bit of time establishing some rules about what we're allowed to do, what's our tone. Obviously, Pencil's launching new releases all the time. You're in the thick of it constantly. And now I need to prepare material constantly to get it out there and tell little stories and show what we can do. So the initial work sort of happened up front, establishing some storytelling rules. And then as a new release comes along, or a new bit of news, in this case the price drop, trying to apply those and maintaining a flexible sort of workflow that we can take any new release and come up with a interesting storyline to talk about it. So our rules are to try and have an AI twist somewhere along the line, but you might be getting this, I was certainly getting it, was a bit of AI fatigue with a lot of really out there, visual noise sometimes, just like crazy AI for crazy AI's sake, which is fun, but we thought we want a little twist where we reveal that. In the case of that one, it's not that extreme, but having that little twist, they're on a film set, was what's happening there. So we fall back on that. The idea of having it on the film set was, how do we articulate this price drop and what's a narrative that makes sense? I'd actually started earlier on another idea, and I'd pushed it quite a long way with a guy at like a tiki bar on a beach, with this sort of wingman encouraging him to approach this girl that he was interested in, but he's out of money, and so then it was like 50% drinks or something like that. But I couldn't figure out where to do the AI twist.
Right.
So I had sort of like a big like a big tiki head, doing magic and stuff like that. But it just didn't. It got so convoluted by the end of it, and we have to, try and hit the 15 seconds. So that sort of goes to show like the rapid pace of, we get the release that comes in, and we've only got about a week to come up with a concept that fits with this tone that we're trying to develop, and execute it and get it out and get it in front of you, make sure that everyone's had an opportunity to participate in the creative process as well. So but winding back to your original question, there is groundwork that's gone in there so that we're not stumbling around blind when a new release comes in. And it's a matter of giving yourself enough time to iterate and play with a few ideas before you settle on something. So, that's the big thing. And I guess with VO3 being cheaper, you can have more rolls of the dice. You can try some things out and you can fail and embrace the failure of, doing the tiki idea. I was like, this is going to be cool.
Yeah.
And then it was just falling flat and it didn't feel right. I'd done a bunch of work, but it didn't really matter. I could, change paths.
Yeah. Well, so that's a brilliant segue. It's almost like you've seen my question list in advance. But look, so let's talk about that then. This idea about fear potentially holding back creativity. I guess this is probably an issue that's been as old as the advertising industry itself, right? But there is a twist now with the advent of AI. So just tell me about, do you think fear holds back creativity? As I say, do you think that's an age-old problem? How do you think the age of AI is changing that?
Oh, totally, man. Like, you were there as I was trying to feel out this sort of creative direction. I had fear. But with the AI, I could, put together some concepts, sort of like filter it out a little bit, get a little bit of feedback before I elevated it to the next level and went, hey, like this is the direction that we're going. And before AI came along, you're in this, how do you do that? Like it's your credibility that allows you to do risky things, or a significant amount of investment in doing your animatics and storyboards and mood boards and this, that, and the other thing. And then on top of that, a lot of that was so reliant on getting scratch sound and edits together and all of that sort of thing. Whereas now, if the accent's not right, have another crack of it. And it's not that I've abandoned traditional skills. For me, I still storyboard, and that's because it's this unconscious process now. So I might have an idea, but just through the process of storyboarding it out, it crystallizes. The characters actually start performing, as you draw, and that actually fleshes it out a lot. And even in that process, like there's a lot of things that go wrong. But yeah, the fear of sort of like putting yourself out there and showing something and having to prep yourself for that sales process to your colleagues or to a client or whoever it is, it's such a big part of it. But now it's you just make it. You do it. It doesn't take long, and it can still be a bit flawed, but that's fine because then as a team you're identifying what's not quite working, and it just improves. Like the discussions that you and I have been having, you're helping me refine everything that we're doing just by bouncing these things back and forth. But what's good is because there's less investment as a creator in doing it, you haven't put so much of yourself into these things that when you say, hey, I don't know whether that thing's working, it's not like this soul destroying
it's not like months of work down the pan.
Whatever, I'll just roll another one, change the prompt a little bit and take that on board. And you know what, like I'm old enough to know that the critique is usually on the money. And then when I see it and I cut it back and I'm like, oh yeah, these guys were right.
I mean,
Yeah,
I still haven't got to that stage. You can ask my wife. I'm still not there. Any critique is,
still fragile as anything.
yeah, 100%. Yeah. So look, I find it really fascinating the way, because I see the sketches that you're producing. So we have this kind of sketch to AI workflow internally that I think is also super cool. So I'll do one more share screen quickly, just so that people can see what it is that we're talking about. So is this like, is this the workflow for you now? You use a pen or a physical kind of way of noting down before you then start working that into a prompt, and then that kind of AI imagery then becomes AI video. Like, talk me through your process.
Well, it is for me, and I guess that's the great thing about Pencil, right? It's flexible enough that I've come along with a completely new workflow and it can accommodate the way that I want to work.
It's super,
In
it's so cool.
Yeah, so I guess where it starts with is the release. What are we releasing? And then we have to generate a concept around that. And that, you know, you have to invest in that more than the actual production of it, you know. And so, I'll go wandering around in the garden or have a cup of coffee and it looks like I'm not working, but that's actually the most important bit, is trying to really focus, generate a few of these concepts so that when you sit down and you start working, there's something there to get into. And I don't fully understand how that works. I don't know. I'd love to find, every creative person's got a different way that they do that, but I would say it's a strange thing where you turn it into a job, but you go somewhere quiet, or you have a routine where you go, you're not allowed back to the computer until you have something to work on. And that's sort of how I do it.
Yeah.
And there's times of the day for me that works. But sorry, coming back to the actual platform, then once we've got an idea, it might be that you converse with a chat agent and say, hey, I've got this, I haven't fully fleshed it out, and just have a conversation with an agent. I'll do that sometimes. For me, it then goes to the storyboard process, and it's just, it's back in, I've got a Wacom, I just start sketching it up. I tend to cut an animatic then and just record dialogue into my phone, because that's when you've got an idea and you're like, oh man, this dialogue's sloppy, it's too long. You start refining it there, refine it in the animatic. So that's generally how I work, is I try and lock an animatic being storyboard panels cut together with dialogue, and usually some scratch music as well, AI generated now as well. And then that gives gives you the pacing, the tone and everything like that. Then drop storyboard panels into these sheets, develop up some master assets. So those characters in there, we work and we get a master asset, and then using Nano Banana, we combine my storyboards with these master assets and we get the first frame, which then we feed into VO3. And then that's sort of our workflow, and then that drops back into the animatic. But it's not like the world of animation and VFX that I was used to and where I've come from, where it's this meticulous process. You get from A to D by following through a sequence. This one is you get from A to D and it's different every time, and you have to embrace that. And we have to make calls. If there's a particular shot that's just not working, then you've got to be flexible in the edit. And so the editing process is far more important now, at least in my workflow. Like, the animatic needs to be a pretty strong guide of what you're doing, but it's not going to follow precisely the way that you want to do it. You have to, but it's fun like in that VO3 thing, the guy going no, hanging onto the side of the thing. It's ridiculous. I need to send you the full take. But that was just one role, and it just felt so silly and action hero 1980s
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
was like, well, that one's going in there.
Gotta stay in. Yeah.
And throughout the process, it's these peculiar interpretations of your prompt sometimes that deliver real gems.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's interesting, I think, because obviously we at Pencil generally we spend a lot of time thinking about the interaction between humans and AI in the creative process, right? That's where you sit. That is your job. That's what you spend time doing. But as a business, we spend a lot of time thinking about that as well. We're a very human first business, as you know. I find it really interesting that actually, in some respects now, the job of the human creative is almost creating the rules and the boundaries for little bursts of creativity from AI. And obviously, there's I'm not saying there's no role for human creativity either, but oftentimes when you're describing your process, actually what you're kind of doing, and tell me if you agree with this, is you're laying borders and groundwork and structure within which the AI kind of throws paint, and then you kind of see where it lands, and then you make a decision on if that's the bit that you want to kind of use. Would that be a fair
yes,
characterization?
sort of. It does. It's surprisingly good at picking up on the tone that you're trying to push.
Yeah,
If you know how to prompt, right?
yeah,
Not always, but uh, yeah, but it is. It's a little bit more like water. You're sort of like trying to get it to flow in a certain
yeah,
direction, and sometimes it just does not want to go that way. No matter how hard you try and
yeah.
dig, it just wants to flow in a different direction.
And you
Um,
know what?
but you
Just
still,
just to stop
you
you
know
there.
it's going downhill,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
you're like, we kind of want to get over here.
I find it
Yeah.
really interesting when that happens because I have the same thing. Sorry to jump in, but it's interesting. You can see where there are gaps in the training data sometimes, where you want to
Yeah.
say you want it to get it to do something that nobody's ever made an image of ever before. So it's got nothing to grasp onto in the training data, and so it'll just try and go towards directions that do exist. You know?
Yeah, and overly complex shots. Those are that's where it really
Right.
gets problematic. Like when that guy was jumping out of the helicopter, originally I wanted him like pressing the button, deploying his parachute. You saw pencil in the parachute behind it, and the helicopter's exploding up there. The parachute coming out just d- didn't want to come out like a normal parachute. It just did all this bizarre stuff. And that was an example in that one where it was like, why am I sitting here re-rolling and re-rolling this? Just have him go through shot, that thing can blow up, and then when we're looking down on him, we just deploy the parachute and we just cut that out. So those are the kinds of editorial decisions you have to be prepared to make.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to sit. There's ways around that if you really want to dive into it. But for the nature of the stuff that we're doing, where we've got this massive high turnover of releases constantly coming out,
Yeah.
pressure to articulate something interesting around that within this narrative framework that we're trying to develop, it's better just to go, okay, I'm going to cut my losses
Yeah.
here and do a different shot.
Well, I think that's quite sort of reassuring in a way for any like human creatives watching because it shows that actually that yes, AI can allow anyone to do anything, but if you are good at something already, you will be better with AI. It's not like everybody's going to come up to your level. It's like everybody will probably come up above your level, but your level will go so much further above everybody else by just having that knowledge of, your there'll be so many things just in your training data, Theo's training data of life that he's been through, working with different companies in different settings, on different pieces of work that allow you to make a million different editorial decisions throughout the creative process that the AI won't have that decision making capability. You still need the person to give it that editorial judgment because the AI always equivocates. When you ask an AI for a decision, it will never send you in any one direction. It will always equivocate on both sides every decision. So you need the person to give you that specificity and that exacting kind of direction. Would you like agree with that?
Well, that's why that walk before you start is so important,
Aha,
because you
but there you
do
go.
need
Yeah, yeah.
to have in your mind sort of where you're going, and then yeah, or then your experience, whether you're in the industry or not, you know, if you're exposed to years of watching media, you know that you can't cut from this shot to this shot without it being jarring and awful to watch and disorientating. Screen direction is, once you've established it, I want the, you might not be aware of it, the terminology and stuff, but you know when you're watching something and then suddenly it's going in the other direction, you're disorientated because you've had a lifetime of consuming media and you've learned all these rules that you've been taught. That's not really there. The AI can maybe go out and look and learn about that, but it doesn't really apply it in a coherent way across a narrative. It doesn't, it almost struggles. They're all separate bits of AI doing different things, you
Yeah.
know, and the AI behind, well, who knows what's going on in the background, but it doesn't appear to, when it's generating a video, have that kind of context over what is a story.
Yeah.
How are you articulating the change of something from this state to this state through a series of moving images? It's just like, bleh, whatever, describes sort of what's going on, but it doesn't have the narrative context. So yeah, it is like it's people, at least at the moment, it's still people that are driving all of this. And I don't know, until the AI can have an emotional reaction to what it is looking at,
Yeah.
like when is it going to have,
Yeah. Well,
I don't know,
what
judgment
what's
that
an
is
emotion?
required?
That's the bigger question. Is there anything special about us?
I don't know, ask a therapist, man.
Yeah, yeah. So look, for anybody watching, I can see we're starting to get some comments in. If you've got any questions for Theo, do drop them into the comments, either on YouTube or on LinkedIn. Anything about VO3, about creating awesome, funny, exciting, visually engaging content, drop them into the comments. So look, moving on then, we've got this idea that you and I have been discussing about the loudest voice in the room, how AI can potentially shift the loudest voice in the room. What do we mean by that? What is that shifting dynamic that you're kind of starting to see?
Well, it depends on what sort of person you are, whether that resonates or
I mean,
not.
I'm quite a loud person, so I'm usually the loudest person in most rooms that I'm in anyway. But I know there'll be lots of people watching who aren't, who are maybe very creative, but also very introverted, who might get some big gains from the AI revolution, right?
So I guess, maybe I'm a little bit like you, but I've certainly been in these big creative situations where you've got a lot of voices and you've got some, you're listening to what's going on in these big collaborative creative projects, and it's not making sense, and you want to raise something, and it's really difficult to do that. Um, I've been lucky in that I can articulate my ideas relatively efficiently through storyboarding or through doing digital art or editing something together and all those sorts of things. But there's limitations to that, and I felt that I haven't been able to articulate an idea easily. And in this case, I thought what we were doing was, in terms of the way that we're developing this narrative, it's quirky. You know, we're jumping all over the show. We've got a bit of a structure to it, but there's a tone. There's a there's a feeling behind this stuff that's really hard to articulate. I can't do it now. How could I articulate what we're doing without showing it and just sound like a mumbling muppet that doesn't know what he's doing? which is probably how I'm conveying to the people watching right now. But thankfully, I've got AI there to solve this issue, and I managed to cut not just one piece together, because it was showing a series of different bits of content at different lengths, different topics, and I could do that. And I mean, we're in an interesting situation where so many of the people at Pencil are remote. So actually that reduces that a little bit. We're not in the office all the time, so we can just share material to do that. It's kind of almost inherent in the way that Pencil operates. But putting that aside, I have been in these situations where you're trying to convey something, and now if you engage with these tools, you can just show it. Yes, you need to polish it afterwards, and it's not going to be perfect, and engage with other people's feedback and everything like that. But you can get it out, and really fast, So the idea is king there. You have to execute it well, So like you say, there's still the human has to be there driving it.
Yeah.
But you can't shout down or talk over a bit of content that you've put together.
Yeah. Yeah. So you don't have to rely on being a gregarious character in order to get your ideas across, right? You can,
or intimidating, or any other tactic that you've built over the course of your life that's allowing you to succeed. Now it's your ideas, and how you've executed them.
Which has got to be good news for the industry, right? It means that there's going to be more people have access to amplification of their creativity than has ever happened before.
Well, it's good news for any business that engages with that, and then allows people and gives them time to show what they're capable of. And I'm just really grateful that Pencil is one of those places, and it's got a really amazing free flow of ideas, and this platform that allows you to do that. So that's fantastic. But it is, but I think you still need a workplace culture that fosters that and gives a platform.
100%. Fully agreed there. Okay, so look, let's talk practical takeaways then. What for brands operating in this new world where you can iterate for half the cost inside Pencil on VO3, or elsewhere if you're mad and but you can iterate for half the cost. You can move at speed. What kind of practical changes should brands be making in terms of their budgets and in terms of their planning?
Oh man, I mean, I think it still comes down to knowing what you're trying to say. What is your message that you're trying to convey each time? Because unless you know that, then whatever you're doing, you've got nothing to measure it against, right? It actually doesn't matter if you're doing it in a traditional way or another way. I think it unless you know what you're doing, where you want to get to, you're still going to waste a lot of time. I think it's just that you can try some riskier creative approaches and give that time. So it's probably, that the end part of the production is going to be cheap and fast, so, but it's still, the polish is still where it really, you still need to polish at the end, but that middle bit is going to be pretty swift. But man, if you don't know what you're doing, that's going to drag out. So I would say it's in upfront, whoever those decision makers are, understanding that it really is fast to iterate and experiment and do all of these things. But how are you then making that decision within your organization? How is that going to work? Because, and look, it's happening all the time. Like, it's great that we've all aligned at Pencil on what we're trying to do, but if we hadn't aligned on that, then we'd be stuck in a loop, and it wouldn't matter that we can keep throwing stuff out there and quickly iterating. So use the tool to get that alignment as quickly as you can. I think that is the change. Use the tool to really experiment, get engagement with all the stakeholders that you need on board, and then you can move forward, and then you can scale massively, right? And that's where all the other things that Pencil has to offer really come on board. Like, once you've nailed that, it's going to go mental. But that's, to me, that's the big difference.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Well, look, as we kind of look to start wrapping up, then, looking forward into the future, what are you most kind of excited about how this industry and how your craft is going to develop over the next few years?
I think, why I was so excited about Pencil is it's connecting these different types of AIs together and creating that smooth workflow. And I think that's just going to keep improving as each model improves here, there, and everywhere. Seeing that become more seamless, and I think one of the big things is we're dealing in quite short durations at the moment. I think what's going to be super exciting is when you're looking at really long format narrative that you can bring that together, and that's just because of my work history and past. Like, that's quite exciting. So there's that. But it's just, honestly, it's just little things about the workflow that is going to make it easier to, rapid prototype these ideas and then really polish them. And, even, with Nano Banana, like, that's just been a big game changer in terms of getting the consistent characters and consistent assets and things like that. So it's just like incremental. I think it's just going to get smoother and smoother, and then then it's just going to be those ideas and alignment.
Yeah, for sure. Good. All right. And is there anything else that we haven't spoken about that you think is important to say about VO3, Nano Banana, Pencil, or any of the work that you've got coming up that we haven't covered yet?
I'm pretty excited about some of the things that are coming up, but it'll be a bit early to talk about those just yet. But no, with these particular releases that we've done, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's cheaper, so iterate, experiment, be brave, do exciting things.
Okay, excellent. Well, look, everybody, if you want to be brave, if you want to iterate, if you want to do exciting things, then make sure you are getting into the platform. If you're not signed up already, getting into Pencil, getting onto VO3 and testing those brilliant ideas you have going on inside that brain of yours. But for this week, that's it from us. Remember, we're here every single Tuesday. We're here talking about creative with awesome creative human beings like Theo. We're here talking about product with our awesome human product team. I don't know why I'm inserting the word human in everything I'm saying. We're here talking product, creative, and news about AI and creativity in the advertising industry. So make sure you hit the subscribe button as well. For this week, that's it from me, and that's it from Theo. Theo, thanks so much for jumping on. It's been great to have you.
Cheers.
All right, thanks everybody. See you next week.